Over here in the side orchard, the peach trees have started to blossom. The pluots, they're always the first to break bud. They've started to blossom. I think that we have had our last hard freeze, so I'm hoping that that is the case. A little update on the mulch. We've been using the coffee chaff from our roaster, our coffee roaster, and that's working really well. You know, the coffee chaff is very light and fluffy, so my main concern is that it would just blow away, but it is working very well. So I'm using that in combination with some cardboard, and we have kind of an unlimited supply, so I'm just going to continue to drop it during the season. But the chaff experiment appears to be working over here in the raised beds. And I'll take you in the back here. The cardinals are out. And so is Marshmallow. Marshmallow, you're supposed to be in the back orchard, sister. There's Tom and Marshmallow. That's Red River. He's our red bourbon. And he didn't even gobble when I kicked the door shut. You're sleeping on the job, Tom. But here in our back food forest, this is the food forest that's all passively watered. So this performs really well. But nothing has really woken up yet. But the first thing I want to do is I want to drop a clip from our roaster. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm here at our roaster, and I thought I'd give y'all a little tour behind the scenes.
Follow me. We go on to the most important thing, which is the green coffee. So right here we got our Swiss water processed decaf. It's basically water that's like heated up, so it's not chemicals, it's not methyl chloride. This is what the government is trying to ban now, thankfully. But we have, so in order to kind of not roast too much and preserve kind of like the full flavor, a lot of the coffees we do half batches. So this roaster can do 150-pound batches or more. So that's typically the sweet spot. So right here we got the weigh cart, and we weigh it, record that weight, and so it'll go directly into the hopper up there. And then we go over here to the control panel. And so currently what we're roasting is some natural Ethiopia. And so that's a natural process, kind of like fermented in the cherry and then processed. And so it's going to have a lot more of like a fermenty, bright flavor. So what our head roaster does is he basically programs the roast, and I'm a glorified button pusher. So I load the profile, and maybe I adjust a couple things. But ultimately, it follows and tracks automatically with probably like 4 or 5 different parameters. And so we're getting closer to first crack. So now is when the time we're going to start hearing the beans start to crackle and pop. And so if you take a sample, you can see that the color is developing. It's no longer green coffee. Because it's at about 375. So right about now is where you'll start to hear it crackle. And so first crack is sort of like the bean has a lot of like chemical components, you know, like every plant does. Where so the bean, you imagine like the split down the center. Basically, that's where the bean starts to explode. and so it starts to create its own heat. It's called an exothermic reaction. So what happens inside the roaster is that temperature goes up a lot higher really fast. So what the roaster does is it accounts for that rise so that it keeps a consistent rate of rise. So it'll bring down the burner and kind of like bring the temperature to a more stable rise. So we get a little bit darker, it's about 390. And we're about 2 minutes from the roast being dropped. This roast ends at about 424 degrees, which makes it kind of like a medium light. So you can see the end point is approaching.
Mike, how many pounds are you guys roasting in a day?
In a day, because it's just me on this shift, we generally like try to roast it all on Friday, but you know we get a little busy, so we have to roast on like Monday or Wednesday. So about in the neighborhood of like 2,000 pounds.
So one guy can roast 2,000 pounds?
In a singular day, yeah.
Wow.
And so this is the Loring Peregrine, I believe. So it's they sell smaller models, but they're all very expensive. So yeah, we're actually getting to that point now where it's going to drop out. You'll hear second crack. So that's where it really starts to pop. So we have this cooling fan, and it's going to spin around and keep the beans basically cooling off. So there's a whole air system underneath, and it exhausts all that hot air out consistently. So when that roaster door opens, you see a bunch of smoke, and you can see it just like the excessive heat. So if you touch this right here, you'll definitely burn your hand. And so yeah, we're lifting the next one once that pops out to limit how much exposure to the heat the beans have. So we let it go through a hot and cold cycle before every roast so that we get a more consistent reading from that thermocouple, which reads about every 1 second, which is pretty impressive because a lot of roasters, it's like you got to wait like 5 seconds, which is a huge delay. So yeah, super easy. I didn't have to learn on anything hard. I just pushed a button. And a lot of the selling points for that roaster is it uses convection, which is different than a lot of other gas roasters. So it's also different than hot air roasting, which is a little bit more like air frying. So technically, this emits less carbon. So all you green lovers out there, you know, it's more green friendly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So when you support Southern Brew, Texas Boys Coffee, you're helping the planet become a little bit less, you know, CO2 polluting, which, depending on the study you look at, might be a bad thing. But anyways, so yeah, one more important thing. This is called the distoner. So when the coffee is basically when it comes out, it needs to have the stones removed. So we have a good collection of these. So we don't want this in your grinder.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is another big one. I must have done Columbia recently. And you know, sometimes we find some incredible things, usually in the green. So that way cart, it also has a magnet, like 4 neodymium magnets, and so it collects all the really bad stuff. But I have this little Moncala table, and I've been sort of sorting all the things that I find. So here's where I have some of the shiny, more agate type rocks, and this is where I find like popcorn and pinto beans and computer circuitry.
And have you found any yayo?
I have found. I haven't found any diamonds yet. The boss says that if I find a diamond, it's his. But I have found a shot bullet that hit a wall or something. It was definitely like jacketed copper, just like with a dent in it. So it was that was something.
It is coming from Colombia, so.
Yeah, but that was in the green. So one of the cool things about coffee roasting is like when it comes in as green, it's there's chaff, which is what you're going to come pick up today, which is great for the garden. You guys know a roaster. If they might be kind enough to give you some of that waste, because otherwise we just dump it. And so it's good for the garden, good for mulch and stuff like that. But what's cool about that chaff is that that's sort of stripped away. So any sort of like worry about mold, it's sort of like, for me, it's like it's over and done with. That outer layer that would be moldy if it could be, because it is kept at a sort of humid environment. It's supposed to be about 20% humidity, I believe. So like a dry product with a little bit of humidity, and so that's why the bags are porous and made of jute. So that coffee, when it's stripped of all that, it also is roasted to 425, 450, which in an oven that's going to kill most things, you imagine. So if there's any microbes or anything, usually you don't have to worry. We keep the roaster pretty clean, so we don't have to worry about any like pathogens, anything like that. And one of these days we're going to get our SQF certification, so then you'll know for sure that we're the best of the best, But anyway,
We already know you're the best, Mike.
well, I appreciate that. So that's the tour. That's how we roast the coffee here.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving us a behind-the-scenes look, and thank you for letting us compost the chaff, the fruit trees. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to interject to respond to a very common comment we get frequently. Recently, I interviewed James Corbett, and I appeared in a small excerpt on his Solutions Watch. There was a comment on there too that kind of corresponded with this, so I wanted to talk about it. So we had a comment on one of our Food Forest videos. It says, let's say the poop hits the prop. What happens when millions of city folk go looking for food and find your homestead? I'm reminded of the Great Depression, where the country was more dangerous than the cities. Now, I'm unfamiliar of the stories during the Great Depression when the country was dangerous, more dangerous than the cities. That's interesting history to me. We had grandparents that lived through the Great Depression and talked to them a lot about it. They were very rural, and I hadn't heard any of the horror stories during the Great Depression. But this speaks to my point, and I'm going to go to the next comment where Corbett and I were talking about raising chicken eggs and having chickens in your backyard. And somebody said, you can get some chickens, but it will be forbidden to have them, or you have to kill them because of some fantasy that says all birds are having flu, which might jump to people. Another person responds, yes, that's what makes me hesitate. Although I have hoped to have backyard chickens once I retired, and bees, but that's another story. It would be devastated if that knock on the door came telling me that my chickens would have to be called. And since I live in California, the possibility of that happening is very real. When our governor declared the supposed bird flu emergency, I went out the same day, bought 6 dozen eggs and freeze-dried them, hoping to do more. Not the same as having fresh eggs, but it's the best I can do for now. So we get this comment all the time. Why grow food? Why prepare? Somebody's just going to take and steal it from you. We've been growing food now. These orchards, these food forests are about 6 or 7 years old. We've harvested a substantial amount of fruit, an enormous amount of pears, a lot of peaches. We have harvested, probably without exaggeration, thousands of dozens of eggs. We have had at times 100 layers. Right now we have about 70 layers, and you always get this this black-pilled kind of response with why you should do nothing because of this pending doom ideology. And I always reiterate this story. During the Ebola scare, we had a prepper buddy that was in West Texas, and he had a very large compound, and it was just him there by himself. He had massive generators that he bought from a decommissioned hospital. He had everything in this compound. It was fenced in with a massive gate. And he called us and he said, it's time. You got to come to the homestead and we got to lock down. And if we would have done that back in 2016, nothing happened then. Okay. And why would you not grow your own food? And so if you take this doomsday mentality, it will freeze you in fear and you will do absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, people are offering solutions. They're showing how it's done. They're doing all the things. They're reaping a harvest. They're having success. They're sharing with their community. And in reality, that's the only way for society to continue to exist. So it's real easy to make these broad blanket statements that may or may not occur. And I always say, plan for the worst and hope for the best. And that's why I wanted to title this video, Don't Grow Anything. Because there's this mentality of this people, oh, well, whatever you grow, somebody else, they, them, and those, and somebody out there and this other unknown group of people are going to come and take it. Well, that's a possibility. And maybe that'll happen 50 years from now. And maybe it'll never happen. But how many more thousands of dozens of eggs are we going to harvest? How many more tons of fruit are we going to harvest? So it all comes with your perspective. It all comes with the way that you look at things. And if you're looking for solutions and not just looking at the problem, solutions are readily available. It's a little chilly today and windy. I hope it's not killing my mic. But I just wanted to respond to these comments and put this video out to encourage y'all. We were just at a carnivore meetup, talked to lots of great people, and we were talking to people about homesteading and about growing your own beef. And there's a lot of people that want to do that. And I just want to encourage you, if you think that you should do it, just do it. You know, do it now. And who knows where you'll be 5 years from now. You know, 10 years ago, we didn't have a single fruit tree. We have over 400 fruit trees and fruit plants and all this stuff. We have a small herd of cows. We have about 20 cows. And if we just lived in fear and the fear of, we wouldn't have done anything. And fear paralyzes people, the fear of the unknown. And some people live on someday, well, someday I'm going to do that. And someday never comes. So I just wanted to encourage you to just do it. And God's in control. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't control what's out of my control. But we can control everything that's within our ability to do. So why wouldn't you do it? That's the reason for the seasons, the soil, the sunshine, and the rain. It's so that we can participate in a regenerative way to create abundance that we can in turn share with our neighbors, love our neighbors, and share and love our community. So I hope you all have an awesome day. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, and we'll see you on the next video.